Okay, all right. I will help you in just a second, Holly. Welcome to everyone to the Forum for Excellence virtual conference in 2020. We're so excited to have you here. And actually, I will be your moderator, Amber Fornisari, and actually Brittany Boston is on with me as tech support today. Please feel free to reach out to us through the chat with any questions. Remember that the chat is directly in the Whova app. So if you're seeing this presentation, you know what? I'm not sharing my screen. Let me try this again. If you're seeing this presentation full screen, you might have to exit full screen to see the chat going on. And I can already see some action there. So I'm so excited that you guys found it. You're ready for the Forum for Excellence 2020 virtual conference. I want to remind everyone that you should be muted coming in, and due to the number of participants, we are going to remain muted throughout the session today. But if you have questions, we want this to be as engaging as possible, so please feel free to put those questions in the session Q&A, and I will field those to your team of presenters for today. Also, please feel free to use that chat to engage and mention any technical issues that you may have.
Okay.
All right. I am going to, nope, I fast forwarded my slides too much there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let our presenters take over here. I'm going to introduce you to the City College's team, as I'll call them, led by Rich Powers. We also have Juanita Buss, Holly Parker, Julie Lasso, and David Cooper, I believe, on with us. And if I miss someone, I'm terribly sorry. There was such a collaborative team here that I tried to get everybody's name. So turning it over to you, Rich.
Hey, Amber, thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. It's after lunch, so you know what happens usually at conferences after lunch. You go to sleep, but I can promise you we're a dynamic bunch of people. We're going to keep you awake. My name is Rich Powers, and I'm an online instructor at City College of Chicago on special assignment to help with our blended learning and Brightspace projects for the adult education program. Just like the rest of you, we've gone through an exhilarating and challenging last few months, and we've been able to take advantage of a small window of opportunity over the summer term to rapidly pivot to blended learning master courses, standards aligned master courses with an eye on quality. And we were able to do that all over the summer. So I'll be joined today by Juanita Buss, who's our Director of Adult Education, the Director of Instruction of Adult Education. And she will talk to you today about quality reviews. Now, you probably saw in my title, in 3 months, where the hype was coming from that kind of a title that's coming in. It is possible, we kind of proved it, that you can have an eye on quality and still do this relatively well. So Juanita will talk to you about that. I'm also joined by Julie Calso, who's an adult educator at Wright College, and she worked with Holly Parker, an adult educator at Kennedy King College, and they worked on one of our teams putting together the Language Arts Level 4 master course. So they'll talk later about what went on in their team and how they developed the course, and we'll be able to show you that. We also are fortunate in having Dave Cooper, who's also an adult educator at Wright College, and he will talk to us about the Level 5 Language Arts course. So you can see how the progression from the 4 to the 5, moved forward with that. Now, how we did this. Some of you out there, you might be thinking, how is it even possible to go from that wonderful classroom environment that we have and now set this up in this world of remote and distance learning? We did it with these 5 main points. So if you're taking notes or you're trying to think about a way to do it yourself, and I'm not talking about just one little course, but a program now of kind of a structure that could be used across various terms and then developed. That's kind of what we're all about here. We use this window of opportunity to build for the future in terms of what was going to happen in the fall and then what's going to happen in the spring and then moving forward. All right, so what are our top 5? Number 1, this is like Family Feud or something, right? Number 1, the theoretical framework and quality standards have to be there. Just like when you cook, you have to have a recipe. It's the same thing with this. You can't just chaotically figure this out and figure that out. People have done this before us. So go to the research, get the academics, get some kind of framework. And then, because there are a lot of standards out there and benchmarks about what makes a good blended learning course, find one. Some of them are expensive. You have to join to use them because they're copywritten, but there are a number of open educational resources out there. And Juanita will cover the one that we used. Number 2, training and professional development. And this cannot slide. This is so important of that. A lot of people think that they're very good at instructional design, which they are because of years of building syllabus, but you have to know about what blended learning is and this mix between a synchronous and an asynchronous component put together. And you also have to know a little bit about your LMS or platforms that you're going to be using. So training and professional development, if you're going to take this on, that's a key investment, and that will pay off while it's working. Number 3, do it in design teams for courses. We're fortunate to have in-house educators that were already pretty good at designing courses, and we had a handful that were really good already at designing blended learning courses. I mean, Julie will talk to you later. She's got a background of 4 or 5 years. It was just a nice, happy circumstance that came about. But the answer to that part, if you're thinking about doing it, a lot of money can be spent on outside consultants. You have the assets in-house. They just need a little bit of. Okay, number 4, have structured deliverables with project reports. That's very helpful. We had a number of about 10 teams of 3 people working all out there on their various courses. And what was important was each week to know what we should be doing this week. They'd say, hey, what should be the plan? So we gave them specific goals and deliverables as they moved through and put those together. And then they submitted a project report. And Julie and Dave and Holly can talk to this a little bit later and let you know if they found that was kind of fun, because what happened was a lot of educators suddenly became administrators. You know, they were doing Outlook meetings and taking, notes and action items and all those types of things. We're working with them as well. So that's a key point of this. You have to have a project plan, a project coordinator, somebody who really keeps people on track. Okay, and our last one, the review phase is super important. Just like writing a paper, get the first draft done early and then tweak, revise with some external review coming in there. So in a nutshell, that's it. Those top 5, right, were kind of our structures, our pillars of how we moved. Now, we were very fortunate in that we had a lot of fun together. And that sounds crazy, but if you remember that time, it was a busy time of the year. People were nervous what was going to happen. COVID was going on. We were all in it together. And we would meet on Zoom and talk about these things. So there was a lot of encouragement. There was a lot of motivation. There's respect. This teamwork came in. The advice was there too. And we were super fortunate. I should have put this as number 6. You cannot do this without the support of your leadership. This can come up from the bottom, but it has to be top down. We were super fortunate to have an Associate Vice Chancellor, Maureen Fitzpatrick at CCC, who supported this and was just super involved with it and said, we have to kind of do this. We had the support of the provost and the deputy provost. We had the support of our Office of Instructional Technology. Audrey Burns is responsible for academic technology. All of that was a big part of that too. And then we had the deans, right? Shout outs to Olive Harvey, Dr. Latasha Davis, to Kennedy King, Dr. Henry Horace, Malcolm X, we had Yamil Steele and Barbara Machino, Truman, Armando Mato, and Steve Tariff, Wrights, Emily Anderson, and manager Joe Tully, Dina Giacometti and Sylvia Davis at Daily. And I know that sounds like an acceptance speech for an Oscar, but I just really wanted to include those people because to show you that, you can't do this alone. When everybody is in and has bought in for it, you can work miracles if you've got the right team. All right. Why blended learning? Everybody out there, traditional probably know already, blended learning, hybrid, same things, 50% on-site, 50% online. Well, April 13th came and boom, everything kind of went out the window. CCC had one hybrid course up until that point, but then from April 13th to May 9th, overnight, every single class became a blended learning course. And if you're nodding your head in agreement out there in the audience, you felt this too. Whether you were using Zoom, phone, email, Brightspace, or text, you were in the blended learning environment, whether you knew it or not, because all that blend means is it's some kind of mix with synchronous and asynchronous and putting those things together, right? Now, the summer scramble that we had as we moved to distance learning here, and let me go back a little. I think that I've passed one of these. Why we were set up for success pre-pandemic. Something quickly about CCC for you. We had already changed our LMS from Blackboard to Brightspace in 2018. Super fortunate with that because what happened was every adult educator was required to go through 2-hour basic foundations training with the LMS. We also required a Zoom license in February of 2020. Super. So we were already set up with an effective LMS. And we had the web teleconferencing there too. And we had developed and piloted one advanced ESL hybrids. So we kind of knew what that was like. So then we were ready to do all these other courses, these 19 other courses, we could do that. So there comes that plug again about getting the right team and putting these together there. All right, so the plan that we had, create these master courses for NRS levels 1 through 6, the small window of opportunity we had there from May 18th to August 7th, and we talked about the progress reports. Remember at the beginning, I talked a little bit about this framework. Super article has a matrix, it's attached to it. We used Graham, Woodfield's, and Harrison's 2013. And in the chat, you'll begin to see now a series of academic links to the articles and to all the sources that we use as we put this thing together. Graham's categories break out to strategy, structure, support. And he says 3 different areas, or they say in this group, awareness, adoption, exploration, and then mature growth. So very similar to a child being born first crawling, then walking, and then running. And we're somewhere in number 1 and now moving into number 2 with these areas. Training, super important. Look down at the bottom. We had 5 modules. You can probably see on the screen, it's not very big. We put all 23 instructors into a Brightspace, a classroom, called it Summer Blended Learning Orientation. And then we went through blended learning as students together, right? So we had 5 modules. Each module was 2 hours of synchronous. We were all together. And then 3 hours async. It was great. We didn't really know that the networking was going to occur as well as it did, but it did. Those modules, if you're interested, my email is rpowers@ccc.edu and give you more information. Module 1 was Graham's framework and matrix to explain the design. 2, how do you review and evaluate blended learning courses? And Juanita will talk more about that. Planning and alignment for course design, super important to align your course materials with the SLOs and have the learning activities and the assessments all work out, and that they be NRS standards aligned. So lots of stuff going in with that module. 4 was about the LMS, Brightspace tools and external apps. Some of us use Quizlet, some of us use Kahoot and some of those things. So that was important. And then the last one, that was all design, right? Now we needed something about how do you deliver a course? Because if all these budding instructional designers were going to do that, they had to kind of put that in there. Now, what was our structure? Just briefly, we had our AVC up at the top running things, project manager, me, curriculum design. We had the executive director for strategic directions, strategic operations, Brittany Jackson-Karras did a super job with curriculum design and overseeing these, also joined with Juanita up there in the top. Then we had a lead for math, a lead for language arts, ESL and Bridge. Fred Siegeltuck did math, Dr. Barbara Sitkovics did language arts, Juanita with the ESL, and Lauren Huberman with our Bridge program too. So having a structure and a hierarchy worked out well for us. Now, remember I'm talking about teams. Later you're going to be talking to Julie and Holly about their team, and then Dave was on one too. Here's the structure for that team and how it worked. The lead, we'll hear from Juanita in there too. You can see the courses that we developed up there on the left. And I put the lead in quotation marks because they weren't really official lead. They ended up being co-leads as they worked together. But there was kind of a review coming in and then every week submitting that progress report and then how that worked. All right, just to show you the overview quickly. 16-week courses we were working on. So we gave them deadlines. Hey, weeks 1 to 4, boom, have to be done by June 16th. So you can see how that, like July 9th, we wanted that load built. And I'll let the stellar instructors talk about how they felt about that as it's moving forward. Once we got to that July 9th point, we realized that we hadn't given enough room in there. So the July 9th really went to about July 20th when all the groups finally finished. And then we entered this review phase and we worked on alignment, consistency, and the standards. And I'm going to turn this over to Juanita Buss, and she'll talk a little bit more about what I mean about consistency and standards so that all the courses looked the same. They had the same thing, even though they were being done by different people as they're moving through. And as Juanita is talking, watch the chat because you're going to see some quality assurance links that are going to come to you that you should probably try to bookmark or move forward. So Juanita, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Rich mentioned, the focus on quality was very, very important as we worked to develop these courses in our learning management system, which again was Brightspace. We had already developed SLOs for our pretty much all of our courses that were NRS aligned. So we were trying to build on, and we had selected core materials for most of those courses. So we were trying to build on those foundational pieces of alignment with the NRS and SLOs for each course. So once the teams worked over the summer on creating these courses, I, at the end of the summer, did a quality review for each of the courses that they created. And I based it on the Quality Matters rubric. This is, I believe, their higher education rubric. They are a really solid organization in terms of pushing forward, quality online instruction. So, and they do tons of trainings and have lots of tools. So I recommend that if you're interested in developing a quality blended learning program, that you look to them. So we looked at their rubric and identified some key elements for this review, and I'm going to walk through those with you in a moment. I want to just say that, this review tool is one of the tools that we have for continuous improvement, and it's along with surveying adult educators and students, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We see this as an iterative process, right? So we've created these courses, but we know that we're going to keep working on them and keep improving them. So, all right. So this is kind of a sample of what the quality review documents look like as I went through them for each course. And we're gonna, don't worry about the fine print, it's intentionally tiny. But basically, as I went through and I identified and looked at each item, I marked the ones that I thought were ready for fall, ready to go in green. I marked the ones that I thought needed to be dealt with right away for the fall in red, kind of as a sense of urgency. And then put those items that I thought needed further development during the fall in yellow. And again, this is all, part of that ongoing continuous improvement process. So let's take a look at the actual standards that we were looking at. Again, these are from Quality Matters on the left-hand side. These are their general standards. And then on the right, you'll see the key elements that Rich and I identified for the courses that were developed over the summer. So the first standard has to do with the introduction to the course. And we want to make sure that there's an obvious place, a start here or a welcome section that helps students begin to navigate the course. We want a nice course overview. Obviously, we need a syllabus. And then we were looking to see that the first announcement was set up to welcome the students. All right, for standard number 2, which deals with learning objectives, we wanted to, I ended up creating 2 categories here. One was for the course level student learning outcomes. So I wanted to make sure that the student learning outcomes that we had established for the course were included in the syllabus for the course, but also that any module level SLOs that the teams had developed were also aligned with the course level SLOs, and of course were measurable and clear. So we wanted to make sure those SLOs were tied in very tightly.
Juanita?
Yes.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you. Could you please give what the abbreviation SLO stands for, please?
SLO means student learning outcome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those are, we have created those for every NRS level of every subject that we teach. So those are kind of standardized across our program. Yeah, and they align, of course, with the standards, the state standards. All right, so the third standard has to do with assessment and measurement, which of course is very important, both formal and informal. So I was looking for assessments in the course and also making sure that the gradebook was set up within the learning management system. Instructional materials, of course, also, something that I looked at, wanted to make sure that they support the achievement of those student learning outcomes for the level, and that any supplementary materials do so as well. The fifth standard from Quality Matters has to do with learning activities and learner interaction. So we want to make sure that the activities that we create are going to facilitate and support engagement and interaction. So I was looking for a mix of synchronous and asynchronous activities. I was looking for a checklist, which is a helpful tool for students to help track their completion of their activities. And then also for awards, which can be, help engage and motivate students to complete those learning activities. And then the sixth standard, there are 8 altogether, has to do with course technology. And so the technology in the course needs to support learners' achievement of the course outcomes. So I was looking to see that appropriate Brightspace tools were used for learning activities. These would be things like discussions, quizzes, and other tools in the LMS. Okay, for number 7, this was sort of built in for us by the Office of Instructional Technology. We wanted to make sure that there's easy access for learners to institutional support services from the college. Okay, so every single course has clearly accessible links on the homepage to information about our support services for students. And then the 8th standard has to do with accessibility and usability. So we were looking for things like the course being easy to navigate, the instructions being clear and at an appropriate reading level for that course, and then the images having alt text so that they can be read by people using a screen reader, and then the videos would also be captioned. So those were all things I was looking for. I think I have one more slide here that gets into, these are sort of outside of what quality matters. I couldn't quite fit them in their categories, but these are other things I was looking for. So we were looking for tips for teachers. Some people, as you'll see when the teachers who are presenting today share their courses with you, you'll see that they did a beautiful job of laying out and introducing teachers to the course, as well as students. I was also looking for something that Brightspace calls Intelligent Agent, which provides automated emails to students. For example, if they don't log in for 3 days, they get an automated email saying, hey, where are you? We miss you. And then finally, we were looking for the end of course survey to be part of the course and help us collect student feedback.
Thanks very much, Juanita. That's excellent. And now we'd like to turn the mic over to Julie and Holly, who will talk to us about their level 4 course. And it might be interesting as when they speak, we're going to go into the Brightspace course and see it. And some of the things that Juanita was just talking about, try and look for and see if you can find them in the course. Okay, Julie and Holly.
Thank you so much, Rich. And thank you for this opportunity to show our course. When Holly and I got together over the summer, the questions we asked at the beginning or what's your idea of what you want this course to be? We talked about how we wanted the course to be, we talked about how we wanted the course to be structured, our strategy, and how we were going to support our students and instructors.
I'm to mute. Hi, everyone. Holly Parker here. Julie and I were both familiar with the course material for our level 4 high intermediate. We realized that we didn't have any novels in this level, so it was all informational reading. The other thing we realized that was our students were one step away from taking HSE exams. So our strategy was to address students from where they're at. They were really in prep mode for the exam, so we chose the lesson sets to prep them for the science test and the language arts test.
Yeah, and like you heard from Rich, Brightspace is a new platform that was launched into some of the CC classrooms last year. The hybrid ESL course gave us our structure for the course shell, of which we have 3 reoccurring parts to every week's lessons: reading, discussion, and writing assignments.
Now, that's the online part of our course. The other important part is the Zoom class or Synchronous portion that supports that teacher-student interaction, and that part is covered in our instructor lesson plans.
So next slide, please.
Our strategy helped us to consider these 3 categories: our students or our population, the materials, and of course, our Brightspace platform.
Luckily, like Rich mentioned, I have had experience this previous year using Brightspace in a blended ESL classroom as the instructor, and also previous years before. And I noticed that students were struggling engaging with it. So this was an eye-opener to our population skills and what we needed, and how we needed to provide a little bit more long-term scaffolding beyond the first meeting.
So if we were going to get students to use Brightspace, we came to the conclusion they needed to be comfortable navigating it. The other thing we knew is our students are visual, so whatever aids we were going to have to give them, and we wanted them to engage with it, it had to have pictures or screenshots if we were giving directions, videos, and even timelines.
Yes, and the materials. For the classroom, it would have been printouts, but most of our students do not have access to printers. So we had to recreate the handouts to be interactive and engaging on Brightspace because the materials can't be filled out online.
But most of all, we wanted to build this engaging course on Brightspace to be as close to the face-to-face classroom as possible. We wanted good discussions, thought-provoking articles, a place to them to write while they also build their knowledge in the area of science.
Mm-hmm. Rich, so this is a screenshot of it, but could we go to Brightspace, please? We'd like to welcome you to Brightspace Level 4 High Intermediate Language Arts course. We're going to give you a short tour. The first thing you are is greeted with announcements. In the announcements, we recap what happened in the previous week, shouts out to what went well, and also in the space we describe what our plans are going to be this week.
And Julie, don't forget, we put our Zoom links on this page, and we have a calendar of assignments of due dates because we had to get our students to come visit us.
That's it. It's true. The Zoom links are so important in connecting us with our students. But for our tour today, as you can see, we have aside from the announcement, we have a welcome overview, syllabus, assessments. We're going to look at a checklist real quick. And we're also going to look at a grade book. Oh, sorry. I was just going over the tour real quick and what we're going to be doing. But now that we're here, let's stay in the welcome. Holly?
Okay, are we in the welcome? Oh, we're in the welcome. Well, welcome to our overview. Come on in. Notice it says that, welcome to Brightspace. In this module, as Julie says, you get a quick description of what this module is about. This module describes the online part of our course. That part is right there at the top, discussion topics, writing assignments, and reading assignments every week. Rich, if you could scroll down a little. In our welcome, you have pages. And all those pages within this module, there's an introduction, there's the syllabus, there's information on the instructor, there's a quick guide to Brightspace, which has screenshots on it to help our students, and tech support with other contact places for college services. But the most important thing on this module is ask a question. Even if our students are down in module number 10 and they have a question, they can always return back to this point. We monitor that one a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I really like what you said there, Holly. I mean, our foundation is based on communication and making sure that we, you know, maintain that communication with the students. So from here, I'd like to go ahead, if you could take us to week 3.
We're going to week 3?
We're just going to go in and see one of the modules with, you know, an example of what, well, first our introduction here into the module, what we're going to be doing. And Mr. Parker here is greeting us.
All right, this is my favorite module because I am in love with Jason Reynolds. If you have not read Long Way Down, read Long Way Down. He's got a deep, rich voice. I just love this module. And I picked him because I wrote the opening description. And if you go down, go up a little, see that part that says writing. Just the mention of this word, I can hear the deep sigh of panic or resignation. And that is all me. That's how I feel about writing. It just shakes me to my bones. And then I get to the point where I yell, I'm not going to do it. And then I whisper, okay, what's the lowest score I can get? That's what I hear from my students. So we needed somebody to talk to them. And this is the part where we talked about it's engaging. This part invites our students into the module. And as you scroll down a little bit more, here are our pages. We start off with the learning objectives. Then we wanted to take them from where they're at. We have them watch a video that has stop points where they're recording, this is where I'm at. And then as the pages go down, we have an assignment to get an idea of where they're at writing wise. And then here come our 3 points: discussion, followed by a writing. And I think for this module, we didn't give them a reading because we had the focus lesson at the top. But if you also notice, for the discussion, we brought in a video. And they have, and everything that follows in the assignment for this week's online portion is around that video of Bodyworks.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have checklists. They were in week 1. Somehow the checklist from this week disappeared. So, but I mean, if we could just quickly go to week 1.
I think we put one. Well, there was one in module 1. Did that one disappear?
Nope, it's right there, Rich. If you scroll down just a little bit.
A little bit more. It's at the top.
Yep, it's at the top. So you see the checklist is usually because students want to know, did I do everything? And so these checklists are so great because it gives them that reassurance that like, okay, I got everything done, right?
Yep.
So, and what I'd like to do now is quickly, Rich, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we look at the checklist? So you could see here that, you know, in week 1, they, you know, read the syllabus.
And the other thing we did is we put links to take them right directly to that assignment if they missed it.
And so, and quickly, Rich, if you don't mind taking us out of the student view, so that we can go ahead and look at it from the teacher point of view. And I just want to touch up on this before we jump into our best practices. So if you could click course admin there. Yeah, so this is really the builder here. Site resources, I was able to use Course Builder to create those, you know, the course parts of discussions and assignments and just plug them all in. And then if we go back to course admin, you could see that there's the attendance here. We could see class progress and learner management, assessment, all the assignments and awards that was mentioned before. Grades, if we can go ahead and click grades real quick. The checklists are here. So everything's here to build off of. It's very accessible to instructors. And here we could see the assignments coming in and we can grade them.
Now, the nice thing about the grade book is we can hide when students come and look at grades, they get something like the form you just saw, but we can hide those items that they have not done yet. So they only get to see what they've done as far as assignment wise.
Yeah. Okay. So now I think we just have a few seconds left before we turn over to David.
Lesson plans. So Julie, want to handle lesson plans?
Oh my gosh, Holly, you know, thank you for being here. Yeah, let's go on down to Instructor Resources. And yeah, here we have some lesson plans. And this really shows the synchronous and the asynchronous structure of the class and how it works for other instructors who have this class, and to show them like what materials from the lesson sets that are provided in the SharePoint at CCC. Here, putting those lesson sets in here and spreading them up between Brightspace and the synchronous classes.
Well, I want to say one thing. Just because we're online doesn't mean we don't have paperwork. We have paperwork online. We're reading papers and we're giving feedback to our students. And that's one of the things that we included in our instructor tips.
Yeah. Well, Rich, if we could go ahead and hop back out to our PowerPoint and go to the best practices and just, you know, touch up on the class here and with a few points. Holly, did you want to say something? Or
how about I take the first two and you can take the next two? I think we achieved navigation to the course in Brightspace. Our navigation and giving students skills with the different tools on Brightspace does not stop in week one. It goes all the way through. In fact, next week I'm teaching video notes for a discussion, and it's something new for my students and they're all geeked up about it. Then we have what I really like with that online class routine. They know how discussion goes, writing, reading. They're comfortable with those tools. Julie?
And it's student friendly. It's like, you know, they're sitting down and having a cup of coffee. We really wanted to create that atmosphere that they are able to engage with other students as well as with the instructors.
Julie's right on that, because our discussion posts have really,
I know,
exploded. We do a lot of discussion work.
Yeah, it's so nice to see that every time, to walk into all these discussions and assignments that are completed. But the last thing is we will also want to make it friendly to other instructors with the lesson plans there and such. So But thank you for having us and letting us show our course today.
Hey, thank you, Julie and Holly. That was excellent. Now we'd like to welcome Dave Cooper, who's going to walk you through the level 5. Now that you've seen the level 4, he'll give you some more views about what he and his team did with the level 5 course. And maybe you'll see some similarities to understand what Juanita was talking about the consistency of the design. Dave, welcome.
Hey, everybody. I'm joining you here. I've got my beautiful backdrop, looks like a back porch. And I hear planes flying overhead. And this is reality. This is the life, as Annie Dillard says. So welcome to my part of the presentation. I focused on the level 5 language arts. So sometimes students placed right into this course, and sometimes they were in a course at the level of Holly, and they moved straight up. Sorry, I just had a mind blank of the name, Kimberly, sorry. And so we developed this course with our audience in mind, trying with our audience in mind. Who's our audience? Well, our audience is made up of people who are at a fairly decent reading level, but it's a mixed bag because some people are a little lower because it's really kind of a combined level course. And what do they want? Well, they want to improve their reading. And why? Well, they want to take their high school equivalency exam. And what does that mean? Well, it means that they want to focus on social studies, science. I'll be in the middle of a lesson and reading, and someone will say, you know, can we do some stuff on World War I? Can we practice some visuals? So it's really kind of a, you know, as you know, a large dynamic group. Slide, please, Rich. So we decided that we would pick our core material from the folders that the City Colleges of Chicago has on their SharePoint site. And we use, doesn't mean anything to you, but we use these 2 folders here. And in these folders, there's a wealth of information. And another thing we decided too was we would take the core materials and try to figure out, well, what are we going to focus on for all these modules? And then put in a lot of other material so that people could pick and choose, kind of make a repository. So earlier, you know, someone said something about the timeline and having due dates, and wasn't that fun? And it was fun, but you know, we kind of went like this. We kind of did a lot of back and forth. I do a lot of writing, and you know, writing is a recursive process, and man, was this recursive, because we would start out, we'd brainstorm, we'd get our thoughts together, we'd do some work, and then we'd have to maybe double back, you know, and so it wasn't a straight line by any means. So that was a challenge, a good challenge, but a challenge nonetheless. Slide, please, Rich. So here's what we came up with. We used the material in those folders that I showed you, and they became the central text for week 3 and 4. We focused on heredity and environment. Week 5, cell structure. That's like a 3-week period of science. Then we, back up. So those became the central text. But first, let me start with at the beginning. So week 1, we got people into the class. We talked about motivation, goals, strategies for success. We did a lot of the onboarding material that you saw in week 4, but not as well, really. And then week 2, we talked about active reading. You know, before we're going to go any further, what does that mean? What is the relationship between active reading and active listening? And then we talked about this. We had this science block. Then we talked about writing. And we thought, well, this is a good point in the term to think about the writing we've done so far, and what was you know, approachable and easy, and what was kind of a challenge. And we also started to talk about extended response, because that's part of the language arts component of the high school equivalency exam. We went into diet nutrition for 2 weeks. We talked about test taking, week 9. And we had an assignment where students would get into the GED and the HiSET material, mostly GED. We got to revise that to include HiSET, but pull out information that they found useful and talk about, you know, well, what kind of test question is this? What's the strategy for answering this well? Then week 10, we talked about corporal punishment and, you know, spanking, and we did extended response number 2. Then we spent 2 weeks, a whole 2 weeks, on equality and inclusion, trying to, you know, hit it, trying to focus on terminology, and points of view and really engage people. It's, we could spend a whole course in any one of these, but students want a variety. So that's what we're trying for. And then we talked about work and minimum wage, and extended response number 3 came around. So we have 2 weeks between each extended response practice. Then we have a unit 2 weeks on employment. And then finally, we do review and reflection. Slide, please, Rich. So generally, here's what students see in every module. They see an introduction, they see objectives, they see instructional material, whether it's reading, viewing, listening, a combination of these. They see work they need to do. They see a discussion or other learning activities. Usually it's one discussion and one assignment, sometimes 2 discussions. The only difference there is an assignment is private between the instructor and the student, and the discussion is meant for further engagement, to get people to practice transferring their ideas from their head to the paper and write it out. And then a checklist, of course. Slide, please, Rich. So here is an example of week 7, thinking about eating. And we wanted to make it kind of, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's my cup of tea, kind of be a little simple blast like this. Thinking about eating. Welcome to week 7. I need a break. I'm ready to go. I'm hungry as heck. I'm satisfied. Have you ever heard the expression, you are what you eat? Let's explore that. So that kind of gets people in. Slide, please, Rich. And then, so we have, just like, was talked about in best practices, we have course objectives, reading, writing, and listening, or speaking, I should say. And then we have module objectives. And the module objectives are pretty simple. Practice reading strategies by exploring, the related topics. Same thing with writing, same thing with speaking. And that kind of continues through all the modules. So whatever the topic is, we're going to practice reading, speaking, writing by engaging in those core, in those topics. Slide, please, Rich. Okay, so here's an example of a really, really kind of simple, approachable discussion. Some people say you are what you eat, others disagree. In what way is this statement, you are what you eat, both true and false? So it's simple, a little bit complex. You got to do a little thinking about it. Just put your thoughts into the post your thoughts, and then read what other people have posted and make a response. Slide, please, Rich. And then here's a little more complex reading assignment. So read the document, notice, information, notice what the document contains, find an advertisement related to nutrition. I said, find an advertisement that you think you know something about, you're kind of familiar with, right? Then complete the analyzing persuasive techniques in advertising worksheet. So tell them where it is, and then do this by either, making a list 1 through 10 and then writing out your responses, or they could, download the sheet and write it out by hand and then take a picture if they needed to and send it back. And then post your work and a picture of the ad, and then respond to what people said. So a little more complex, try to engage a lot of people. And some people, they'll be able to do it, no problem. Some people will be like, wait a minute. So then that's where you come in and you help them out. And the good thing about this is, we developed this for a blended learning class, but best practice is before you send people into the blended learning environment to work on their own, while you got them, you can say, hey, let's look at what you're going to do on your own. So you can go through this and people will say, okay, I get it. Or really, I got some red flags about this issue. They can either say so in public, or they can let you know in private later on. Okay, slide, please, Rich. So what about the other modules? Each module that we created has an instructor resource module attached. All right, and we're going to see more about that in a minute. And then in the course, there is a resource module, like a repository of links and files and the like for HSC, for history, social studies, for reading, and for writing, and the Constitution test. So what this is there's a lot going on in this course, and sometimes the instructor will want to pull from these modules into their weekly module. And sometimes, like I said before, in the example I used before, sorry about that, a student will say, hey, I really want to focus on this. I need to focus on this. So in my case, what happened was, students said, I need some information about World War I. Oh yeah, let's go into the history of social science module and see what's there. And we found something and we used it. Okay, slide please, Rich. So going back to the resource module, I want to show you that every resource module has a potential synchronous lesson plan. And then there's a list of items in the module. So let's see, for example, so the instructor's note here is material in this resource section of the module is from the NRS 6 High Language Arts Chew on This lesson set. Now, we did not use any novels because at the time, quite frankly, given the compressed schedule, we like, I don't have the novel at home, and I don't know who's got the novel, and I don't know which instructors are going to have the novel, and I don't know which students are going to have the novel because they're all locked up on campus and we can't get there because of COVID-19. So we did not use the novel, but along with the novel, there's just a ton of really good resources that were put together by Juanita Buss and company. So next slide, please. Here is an example. It's not the whole thing, but it's an example of how the possible synchronous lesson plan looks. It's got the topic. It has estimated time, about 3 hours. And then it's got a series of activities, and every activity has an estimated time. The one you're seeing on your screen is about an hour. Then it includes individual activities, whole class activities, small group activities, back to whole class, and kind of get it really engaging. These are just possible synchronous lesson plans. This is me sitting on my back porch, not a back porch, just a screen, with the plans going over, just kind of, jamming on what would I like to see happen in this class? So just a potential module. A potential lesson plan. Slide, please, Rich. So then the rest of the resource module that I was talking about, as I was saying, just has a lot of material. In this case, material related to nutrition, which is related to the Chew on This novel. It's got lessons, a lot of different things people can pull from. If you're an instructor and you like, I really want to focus on this. Well, all right, hide what's in the weekly module and pull that up into the weekly module and unhide it. And there you go. Slide, please, Rich. Just to give you an example of the types of assignments that are in the course, we have week 1 is a letter of introduction. Then we have some assignments that focus on, this is heredity and environment, just part of who I am. This is week 6, review and revise the in-class essay we did a little earlier in class. It has nothing to do with the extended responses, except that the choices they had to write on, how do you feel about, I think it was sugary drinks in schools and spanking as a form of disciplining your kids. And the other one was minimum wage. Just how do you feel about it? Just to get them primed, and to focus on revision. And then later on, we'll do extended response. Then we have something to do with, anyway, I'm running out of time and I'm tripping over my own tongue. Here's a variety of assignments. The main thing I want to focus on, look at week 16, final reflection, goals, and language arts confidence. So I'm asking people to think about their own learning at the end of the course. I know we have the course survey. This is another addition, kind of metacognitive. Think about what you've been doing, how well did you do it, how do you feel about what you did, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. Finally, I just want to show you that here are the extended response practices. It's kind of redundant to what I showed you before, but we have one in week 8, week 10, week 13, so people can do the work, submit the work. We can, give feedback to the work, and then they can, try it again later. And so really, we had a lot of fun. It was a challenge. There were people on my team that were not comfortable with the idea of Brightspace. They were still learning it. And so, it was really, really much of a challenge. We think we did the best we could. But then the question is, how did we do? How good was it? So how well did we meet our purpose? What will the instructors say when they're using this course? And then what about our audience? Is there going to be enough, way too much, too busy, too fast, too slow? We'll wait and see. But for now, we're at this point now at the end of the summer and feeling pretty good about it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks very much, Dave. And now we'd like to say, at this point, what's next, right? So we'd like to talk about fall 2020 briefly. And Juanita?
Hi, yeah, just quickly, because I know we're running short on time. One of the important pieces of this whole continuous improvement process is the adult educator and student surveys that we're giving, or we're distributing to our teachers and to our students. They're separate surveys, they're different surveys, but we want to survey them multiple times each term, and really get a sense of, what they're using, what they're satisfied with, and use that as try to get as specific of feedback as possible so that we can make improvements to the tools, the courses in Brightspace, and also the professional development that we are planning for our teachers. So.
Thanks very much, Juanita. So in summary, if we go way, way back to where we started, from the beginning of the slides, we were talking about our top 5 areas and what we did, of how we did these things. Those 5 things we want to leave you with. Come up with a theoretical framework and quality standards that you might have found in the chat. Get some training and professional development. Don't skimp on that, super important. Use your in-house educators, the people that are already there that know the courses. You'll have lots of support for that when they're eventually launched. Put them in design teams, have structural deliverables with project reports, and then have all important this review phase. Now I'm going to stop sharing the slides, and maybe, it looks like there's only about 1 minute for questions or comments. I'm going to turn this back to Amber, and want to thank everybody for attending today.
Thank you so much. Everyone is giving you a great round of applause. I hope you can hear this roaring round of applause. If you're still on with us in that chat, please give us some great hand claps and some emojis. We loved it. The amount of work that your team at CCC did in that amount of time frame is just remarkable. And it shows how big of an organization and how much support you have from everyone, your administration team, your educators, and your students. And I'm so glad you've been able to pull that off in the last few months. I want to make sure everyone on has, please make sure you're filling out your session evaluations. They are like 3 simple, quick rating questions. All you do is click the rate session button that's right in the Whova app under the session you're viewing. It really helps us and helps the presenters. They will get any and all of that feedback as you walk through today. So please make sure that you are giving them their props and their due. This is a picture of what that rate session button looks like. I also want to give a shout out for all our social media, and not just social media. You don't have to be 18 on TikTok to do our social media type stuff, guys. We have some really great gift cards and giveaways for the Forum for Excellence that are tied to some things going on in our social network. So make sure you are on those. You can follow us at the Forum for Excellence 2020 or Excellence for Equity, and you'll find all of those great giveaways and fun, engaging things. I also want to plug, we have an awesome night tonight. We might not have dueling pianos like in the past, but we have an awesome night tonight of trivia. So please make sure that you register for the trivia event. It is family friendly, so you can bring on the kiddos, bring on your teens and get them involved. In our Forum for Excellence, please just make sure you register for that event. And I have seen some awesome photos going up on the app. Make sure you're texting those photos of how you're engaging with the Forum for Excellence to the number on your screen. And tomorrow morning, you are going to see a live representation of all those photos coming together. It's going to be truly awesome. We thank you so much today for your participation, your patience, and your grace as we are pulling off our first virtual conference ever. And we hope that you have a great day. Thank you very much to our sponsors. And I will say to our CCC team, there is one question in the chat and session Q&A you might want to respond to from Rachel. if you have a minute to stay on, I'm sure they will stay with you, Rachel. But otherwise,
Absolutely.
have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will stay on with Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely, Amber. Rachel, please, if you can unmute and give us your question.
So Rachel probably can't unmute, but I will read it for you. She would like to hear about the future of hybrid learning, especially post-COVID, and what will happen with face-to-face learning. If you have those kind of ideas, she'd also like to know, you mentioned a 3-year plan. So how does that work into what the future holds?
Yeah, maybe I'll defer a little bit to Juanita right before I shortly say that CCC originally had kind of a 5-year plan for hybrid courses to slowly explore which ones were more effective based on student enrollments. And so this crash course in blended learning really moved us forward in 3 fast years. So we haven't had a lot of success with hybrid enrollments yet because students with the buy-in. I'll turn this over to Juanita for what might happen in spring of, or where we might even be next year if some of these courses are successful.
I don't know about you, but Rachel, but planning anything beyond 2 weeks is becoming a challenge. That we don't know. We, like everyone else, we're responding to what's happening. But I can tell you that we're going to continue. I mean, this continuous improvement thing is big. We're going to keep pushing for quality, and we're going to use that Graham matrix that Rich talked about, and we'll see what, as we go through those stages that he talked about, we'll see where we go. I think it's if I think that all of this experience, the sudden experience of being fully online, is going to have we'll have increased our capacity to do a lot of things, and so we'll see where it goes. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I knew where we're going to be a year from now or 3 years from now, but we just continue to respond to the situation as it changes. And I actually really have to give a shout out to teachers like you who have worked really hard to reach out to their students. That's been huge, and also have worked really hard to adapt to this environment. So that's my answer, Rachel.
Thank you guys, CCC, and everyone who's here today. Rachel, I hope they answered your questions, and you can, of course, keep the conversation going in the chat, in the session Q&A. There's also meetups available in the app, and I hope to see all of you at trivia tonight. I am bringing it, so you all better be ready. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.